The Santa Barbara County Public Health Mobile Vaccine Program presents the My Turn training, recorded on April 26, 2022. Today's agenda includes logging onto the iPads and the My Turn website, discussing the duties of registration, which include checking in patients with appointments and registering walk-ins, discussing the duties of scribing, which consist of documenting vaccinations and adverse reactions, and lastly, troubleshooting tips for the iPad or My Turn. The objectives of this training include learning how to use the iPads, connect them to Wi-Fi, and troubleshoot any Wi-Fi errors, learning to feel confident in your ability to use My Turn to check in patients and make walk-in appointments, learning to accurately document vaccinations as a scribe, and lastly, learning how to troubleshoot any technical issues that may arise. Logging into the iPads. We use iPads at all of our clinics to log on to My Turn and complete all vaccination documentation online. Some staff members have not used iPads before, so here is a quick explanation of how to use them. The home button is this little round button located at the bottom of the iPad screen. The on-off button is on the top right corner of the iPad. You must hold this button to turn the iPad on or off. Once the iPad turns on, you will be prompted to enter a passcode. All of our iPads have a passcode of either 10-10-10, 20-20-20, 30-30-30, or 40-40-40. Please try each passcode once until it unlocks. Make sure to only try the passcode once because if you enter the wrong passcode too many times, you will disable the iPad.
Connecting the iPad to Wi-Fi. For us to access My Turn, we must be connected to Wi-Fi. To do this, you must first unlock the iPad. Then, from the home screen, click on the Settings app. Once you are in the Settings menu, click on the Wi-Fi tab. Turn the Wi-Fi on by tapping the switch located at the top right corner of the screen. You can ensure that the Wi-Fi is on by checking that this switch turns green. Click on the Wi-Fi network that you want to join and enter the passcode. Please note that we use portable Wi-Fi devices called MiFis to access My Turn at all of our clinics. The network name and password is displayed on our portable Wi-Fi screen. Click on the MiFi's power button until the screen shows you the network name, and then click on it again for it to show you the passcode.
Opening the internet browser. Once you are connected to Wi-Fi, click on the Safari app to open the internet browser. In the box at the top, you can type in the URL to get to the My Turn website. The site link is located right here, mycavax.cdph.ca.gov. Logging into My Turn. To log into My Turn, click on the red login button located at the top right corner of the screen. Then type in your assigned email and password. Make sure to add .myturn to the end of your email. Some of you may have to add the number 1 to the end of that, making it .myturn1. Some examples are shown here. This is a brief summary of clinic stations. First, the patient makes an appointment online at myturn.com. When they arrive at our clinic, they are checked in at the registration table. Then, registration sends the patient to the vaccination station. At the vaccine table, the scribe documents the vaccine on My Turn, while the vaccinator documents it on their vaccine card. Lastly, the patient is sent to observation for monitoring. Before we go over how to use My Turn, we want to define some important terminology. Take a look at this table on the top. The roles in My Turn include vaccinator, vaccine supply, scribe, and registration. The vaccine supply role is the same as the vaccine manager role at our clinics. A scribe is a person that uses My Turn to document a vaccine. They sit with the vaccinator at their table. Registration workers are people who work to check in clients and make walk-in appointments. Now, let's look at the table at the bottom. This table provides us with definitions of statuses in MyTurn. Pending vaccination means that the client has not been checked in yet. Checked in means that the patient has already had their information verified by registration and is now waiting to get vaccinated. Lastly, vaccinated status means that the vaccination has been completed and recorded in MyTurn. Now that we have discussed logging into MyTurn, we will go over how to check in a patient that has an appointment. The first step to checking in a patient is to verify their identity. Ask the patient for any form of ID that has their legal name on it. Please note that some patients might not have a driver's license or a state-issued ID. Reasons for not having a government-issued ID could include an individual who is undocumented, unhoused, or a variety of other issues. Please work with the individual to help them find documentation. Not having a government-issued ID should not be a barrier to vaccination. There are a lot of other acceptable ID documents that we could use, such as a business card, a work ID, a school ID, a library card, a letter from their employer or school, bank or ATM cards, their Costco card, an electrical bill or other utility bill, a matrícula consular, a pay stub, a passport, a money transfer receipt, or their school portal login. Along with verifying ID, we need to verify their previous vaccinations. Ask the patient to see their vaccination record. For patients vaccinated in the U.S., their vaccination record is their white CDC card. For patients vaccinated abroad, their vaccine record may be a letter-sized paper or a booklet. For patients that don't have their physical card on them, ask if they have a picture of it. We can use a picture of their card as long as it clearly shows their name, date of birth, vaccine products, lot numbers, and the dates of their vaccination. If the patient was vaccinated in California, they can look up their California digital record, and we can use that to verify their vaccination status. For patients who got vaccinated in other countries, be sure to ask them for proof of those vaccinations. If you have a patient who absolutely has no documentation, find your pod manager so that they can try to find that vaccine info on care. Before we move on, I would like to discuss some common questions about vaccination cards. For patients that lost their white CDC card, we can write them a new one with their past vaccines on it after verifying those vaccinations in care. If their card is tattered or completely ripped, we can also write them a new one after verifying their past vaccinations on care. If the front of their card is filled up, check to see if there's space on the back of the card. If there's an empty row, place the lot number sticker there, and then you don't have to give them a new card. This slide details acceptable vaccine records. As you can see, there are a lot of options for us to verify past vaccinations. We can use their white CDC card or their World Health Organization yellow card. We could also use a picture of their vaccine card or a photocopy. If the patient has a document from their healthcare provider, we can use that as well. And we can also have the patient look up their digital record on the spot, and they will receive a text with a link to their record within minutes. This slide details how a patient can get their digital record. Patients who are vaccinated in California can go to this link, myvaccinerecord.cdph.ca.gov. They can go ahead and fill out the form, and then they will promptly receive a text message with the link to their record. Step 2. Find the appointment in MyTurn. Once you have verified both the patient's identity and previous vaccinations, you can begin to search for their appointment on MyTurn. To do that, you should first type in the clinic name into the clinic line box. Then type in either the patient's date of birth or their last name or their first name. We recommend searching by just one patient identifier, such as date of birth, last name, or first name. If they don't pop up, try to search by a different identifier. Once their name pops up, click on it to open up their appointment info. Step 3. Verify the patient's information on MyTurn. Verify that the patient's information on MyTurn matches their ID card. Their name on MyTurn must be their legal name. We cannot use any nicknames. At some clinics, international students have registered with their English or their US name, but we need to go ahead and enter their full legal name. If the name on MyTurn doesn't match the patient's legal name, or if the date of birth was entered incorrectly, click on the red Edit button to correct it, and then click Save. Step 4. Review the screening questions. On MyTurn, patients answer pre-screening questions about their medical history. Check to see if the patient answered yes to any of those questions. If the patient did answer yes, you can request a medical consult with one of our county or MRC physicians. The physician will ask a few more questions and provide any specific medical advice. Answering yes does not necessarily mean that they cannot get vaccinated that day. It's just a precaution that we have to take. If the patient answers yes to any of those screening questions, please remind them to tell their vaccinator. For example, if the patient tells you, "Yes, I am on a blood thinner," tell them to let their vaccinator know so that the vaccinator can apply pressure to the injection site for an extended time. If you look at the image to the left, you will notice that the first question on the list is, "Are you feeling sick today?" If you have a patient that is feeling sick, refer to the CDC interim guidelines. These guidelines tell us to defer vaccination until the patient feels better. Since guidance is constantly changing, please be sure to refer to CDC guidelines for all patient questions. If you or your patient have further questions, contact your pod manager for assistance. The pod manager should use the CDC guidance to help advise the patient and direct them to a medical professional. Step 5. Confirm that the patient is eligible for vaccination. Now that you have verified all patient information in MyTurn, you need to verify that the patient is eligible for vaccination that day. Refer to the eligibility chart to determine if vaccination is indicated. The chart shows you a timeline of vaccination for the general population and for the immunocompromised population. It also shows you the age requirements for each vaccine. Please note that this eligibility chart is constantly being updated. Please ensure that you are using the most up-to-date version. When confirming eligibility, we do have some special considerations. The first thing we must consider is the vaccination schedule for the immunocompromised population. Patients who are moderately to severely immunocompromised have a different vaccination timeline than the general population. As you look at the eligibility chart, you will notice that this group is eligible for an extra dose in between their primary series and their first booster. Use this chart to confirm the interval between all vaccinations. Please note that an additional dose of Moderna is the full dose, while a booster dose is a half dose. Also, note that J&J cannot be used as this additional dose/third dose for the immunocompromised population. It is very important for vaccinators to know exactly how many doses the patient has received and if the patient is there to receive a full dose or a booster dose that day. The second special consideration you may encounter is assisting patients that have received vaccines abroad. If the vaccine they received is not one of the 3 offered in the US, which are Moderna, Pfizer, and J&J, we need to refer to the World Health Organization and CDC guidance. At each clinic, we have a list of approved vaccines. If the vaccine is on that list and enough time has passed since their last dose, we can administer the appropriate booster. If you look on the right side of this slide, you will see an example of a row in our World Health Organization approved vaccination list. In this example, the patient completed their AstraZeneca primary series, and now they are eligible to get an age-appropriate mRNA booster. So the patient is eligible for a Pfizer or a Moderna booster because this vaccine is listed on our WHO list of approved vaccines. If you need more information, look in the CDC Interim Guidelines document under the International Vaccines section. That document will provide information about specific circumstances, such as what to do if the patient received only one international vaccine or if they received a vaccine that is not WHO approved. Step 6. Verify which vaccine the patient will be receiving. Now that you have verified the patient's ID, past vaccinations, and eligibility, ask your patient what vaccine they are getting today. You want to find out which vaccine product the patient wants. Do they want Pfizer, Moderna, or J&J? You also want to find out which dose it is. Is this their first booster or second booster? Are they immunocompromised, and are they here for a third dose? Please note that some patients make appointments for a particular vaccine and then they change their mind when they arrive at our clinic. Other patients may have accidentally selected the wrong vaccine product when scheduling. For example, you may have a patient that registered for J&J on my turn, but then they show up to our clinic and they want Pfizer. In that case, we can't edit what their my turn appointment says, but the patient can change their vaccine preference at the clinic. The scribe will record the actual vaccine administered when the patient gets vaccinated, and my turn will accurately display the vaccine product received. Step 7. Mark the patient as checked in. Once you have verified all of the information, mark the appointment as checked in and click Next so that my turn can change the status from pending vaccination to checked in. To return to the home screen, click on the Home button at the top of the page. Step 8. Direct the patient to the vaccination area. Once the patient is all checked in, hand them their ID and their vaccine record. Advise them to keep these documents out as they will have to give them to their scribe and vaccinator. Point the patient towards the appropriate line to await vaccination. This concludes the process of checking in a patient with an appointment. We will now discuss the process of registering walk-in patients. Patients who do not have an appointment are still eligible to get vaccinated at our clinics as a walk-in. There are two ways to check in walk-in patients. The first method is to have them scan a QR code and have them make an appointment online. The second method is for our staff to use my turn to make the appointment for them. In the next slides, we will go over how to register patients using both methods. Method number 1, QR code option. At our clinics, we print out posters of QR codes. Patients can then scan that poster and it will lead them to a link where they can register on the spot. To do this, we must first verify the patient's ID and vaccination record. Then ask them if they have a smartphone that they can use to scan that QR code. Help the patient scan the QR code and ensure that they find the correct My Turn link. Usually patients that use this method are pretty good at making their own appointment, but if they do have questions, offer them assistance. Method number 2, My Turn option. If the patient does not have a smartphone or they can't scan the QR code, you can make them a walk-in appointment using My Turn. Let's go ahead and walk through those steps now. Remember that the first step to helping a patient with the My Turn appointment is to verify their identity. Remember that you could use a government-issued ID or anything else on the list of acceptable ID documents. Again, we want to verify that they also have some proof of their past vaccinations before making an appointment. Step 2. Now that you have verified their information, fill out the walk-in appointment form on My Turn. You can find this form on the toolbar at the top of the web page. If the patient is tech-savvy, they may be able to fill this form out if you hand them the iPad. If not, ask the patient these questions and enter the answers into the form for them. Please make sure to use the patient's legal name when filling out the name box. Make sure to fill in all boxes that have a red asterisk. The form asks patients to fill out their health insurance information. Some patients don't know their insurance policy number or they don't have health insurance. If that is the case, check the No Insurance box to bypass these questions. Once you have filled out all sections, click on the Confirm Appointment button at the bottom of the page. Step 3. Find the newly made appointment in My Turn. After filling out the walk-in form, the patient now has an appointment. Go ahead and follow the same steps as you do for a patient that had a pre-existing appointment. To do this, you want to go to the Appointments tab at the top of the page and look the patient up under Pending Vaccination Status. Step 4. Have the patient answer their pre-screening questions. Once you have found the patient's appointment, click on their name to open up their information. You can hand the patient the tablet and have them read through their pre-screening questions. They will answer yes or no to these questions. If the patient needs assistance or translation, you can read them the questions, but be cognizant of your surroundings and maintain the patient's privacy. Once you get the tablet back, sanitize it and check if they answered yes to any of the questions. If you do see any yes answers, refer to the CDC pre-screening packet and consult with the healthcare professionals on site. Step 5. Verify eligibility. Once the screening questions are answered, please make sure to verify the patient's eligibility with assistance from the eligibility chart. Again, remember that there are special considerations if the patient is immunocompromised, as the timelines are different. Also, remember that there are special considerations if the patient was vaccinated outside the U.S. Use the CDC and World Health Organization literature to help you confirm their eligibility. Step 6 is to verify which vaccine the patient is there for. Step 7 is to mark the patient checked in. After checking in the patient, send them to the vaccination station. Now that we have discussed how to register patients and check them in, we will discuss how scribes document vaccinations on MyTurn. Step 1. Obtain the patient's ID and find their appointment in MyTurn. When the patient gets to the vaccinator table, the scribe should collect the ID and the vaccinator should collect the vaccine record. Scribes should use this ID card to look up the patient's appointment. Make sure to set your status to checked in and look up the patient by their date of birth. Scribes should double check that the MyTurn information matches the ID. Step 2. Review the screening questions with the vaccinator. The vaccinator should ask the patient if they answered yes to any of the pre-screening questions. If they did, the scribe can go back to those questions on MyTurn using the Back button. The vaccinator should discuss these answers with the patient and provide them with any additional advice. If necessary, we can request a medical consult with the physician. Step 3. Document the vaccination. Once the patient is ready for vaccination, go ahead and check those 2 consent boxes. Record the vaccinator's name, which arm was used, which vaccine product was used, and the correct lot number. Scribes should record the vaccine on MyTurn, while vaccinators should record it on the physical card. Vaccinators, please be sure to write booster on the vaccine record when you administer a first or a second booster dose. Step 4. Know any adverse effects. Once the vaccine information is inputted, hit Next and then hit Complete. If an adverse reaction occurs, we can go back and modify the patient's record. To record the next vaccination, go back to the home page. Scribe instructions for recording immediate adverse reactions. In the event that someone does have an adverse reaction, scribes must document that in MyTurn. To record an adverse reaction, the scribe should find the patient under Vaccinated Status. Click through the patient's information until you get to this page titled Immediate Adverse Reactions. Ask the medical staff to check the boxes that apply and add any necessary information about the signs and symptoms in the Notes section. This concludes the scribing section of this presentation. We will now proceed by discussing troubleshooting tips. Here are some tips to help you with common MyTurn issues and questions. Number 1. Be patient. The server is very busy and sometimes it just works slowly. Number 2. If My Turn is running really slowly and the 3 loading dots are appearing across your screen, place your iPad on airplane mode and turn Wi-Fi off for a few seconds. After this, turn your Wi-Fi back on and turn off airplane mode. Return to the My Turn webpage and hit refresh. This may help it speed up. Number 3. If you are looking up a patient and nothing is coming up, hit the refresh button, as My Turn may have logged you out. Number 4. Ensure you are connected to your closest Wi-Fi source. Sometimes our iPads try to connect to other MiFis in the clinic. Number 5. If you can't find your patient, try to expand the date range. Make sure you are looking under Pending Vaccination at Registration or Checked In at the vaccination table. Check the date of birth, ask for their confirmation code, etc. Here is a detailed explanation of how to turn on airplane mode. If My Turn is running really slow, put the iPad on airplane mode for 10 to 15 seconds. To do this, put your finger on the top right corner of the screen and drag it downwards. You will see this menu pop up. Click on the Wi-Fi symbol to turn Wi-Fi off. Click on the airplane symbol to turn airplane mode on. Leave the iPad on these settings for about 15 to 30 seconds. Click the airplane to turn it off and click on the Wi-Fi symbol to turn it back on. Return to the My Turn webpage and hit refresh. We've covered a lot of info in today's presentation. If you ever need a refresher and you can't access this recording, refer to these job action sheets. A copy of these sheets will be available at each pod for registration and scribes. These action sheets provide a summary of how to register patients, check them in, and scribe vaccinations. Thank you for listening to today's presentation. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to your pod manager.